Welcome back. As President-elect Donald Trump prepares to return to Washington, Democrats are trying to figure out what went wrong in 2024 and where they go from here. The first conundrum, who will be the new leader of the Democratic National Committee? Ben Wikler is the chairman of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and a leading candidate to be the next chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Ben, we thank you for being with us. One of the big challenges for your party right now is finding consensus for what went wrong in 2024. But there's even disagreement on whether or not to do an official post-mortem. And I'm not going to use the A word. I won't say autopsy. But do you think that the party should take stock of what happened in 2024 in a comprehensive way?
Chris, it's good to be with you. And of course, we should do an after-action review. You should always do an after-action review, figure out what worked, what didn't, what things that you didn't do that you should have done or could have done to have a different outcome. You know, this isn't horseshoes. Getting close doesn't win elections. We know that we did the best in the places where we fought the hardest and where Trump fought the hardest. In Wisconsin, we had a swing, a quarter the size of the swing nationally. We added votes for Harris relative to Biden in 2020, and yet we still lost by less than 1 percentage point, but we lost. So we need to do better and be stronger going forward. And one thing we already know is that we lost the most among the people who heard our message the least, people who pay no attention to political news. We lost by 16 points in exit polling. The people who pay attention all the time, we won by 8 points. So that says to us, we need to change where and how and who is communicating to be able to reach voters and demonstrate that we want to fight for working people across rural areas and suburbs and cities, across race and ethnicity. Anyone who works for a living should know that the Democratic Party is on their side, fighting to make sure that the economy works for them and isn't just rigged to help those at the very top. That's a message that unifies Democrats and helps us win elections, and we need to cut through with it if we're going to win in 26 and 28.
So is that a messaging, not a message problem, that the message was okay, but the way that that message was carried and the means by which it was carried was more the problem?
I think we should be doing a top-to-bottom review, to be honest. And it's how we organize, how we communicate. It's also when. You know, Wisconsin, we've built a permanent campaign over these last 6 years. As I've been chair, my predecessor, Martha Lanning, launched year-round organizing. And right now, we're preparing for a state Supreme Court race that's happening this spring. We have Susan Crawford versus Brad Schimmel. Whoever wins has the controlling vote in Wisconsin State Supreme Court. So we need to win that election to make sure Wisconsin doesn't get rigged again. There are races like that across the country. And as a national party, if we take those fights seriously, we can avoid a situation like we're in right now, where Republicans have a U.S. House majority because Republicans won the North Carolina Supreme Court majority 2 years ago. If we are running a campaign all the time and making the case and trying out different ways to communicate and honing our message to show that we're fighting for working people, then by the time we get to the Super Bowl, we're gonna have all the pieces in array. We'll have the kind of team that no one wants to face up against. That's the work of these next 4 years, and this is both building on a lot of strength and a rebuild moment to have a game plan in all 50 states, a strategy for every state that allows us to unite this party to fight up and down the ballot and win.
Okay, one point of contention is whether or not your party has been too extreme on cultural and social issues, which would leave Kamala Harris vulnerable to Republican accusations of wokeism. Here's James Carville talking about identity politics.
In comedy, if you tell a bad joke, who gives a shit? You just tell a bad joke and you throw the bad joke away. In politics, if you have a bad policy, particularly one as bad and stupid as this was, you may throw it away, but the other side gets to play. Understand that. This is a two-sided thing.
Outgoing chairman Jamie Harrison does not agree. Here's what he said at a gathering of state party leaders, quote, "When I wake up in the morning, when I look in the mirror, when I step out the door, I can't rub this off." Harrison, a black man, said, "This is who I am. This is how the world perceives me. This is my identity, and it is not politics. It is my life. And the people that I need in the party, that I need to stand up for me, have to recognize that. You cannot run away from that." I don't know whether you were present for the remarks, but I want to get a sense of where you find yourself on this continuum between what James Carville is saying and what Chairman Harrison said.
I think there's a way to find the truth in two things at once. The first is everyone is who they are, And no matter what the color of your skin is or who you love or how you pray, everyone needs a roof over their head, everyone needs food, and everyone's worthy of freedom and dignity and respect. And to be able to win elections and persuade people, we need to recognize people think a lot of different ways about a lot of different things. And we can't be scolding people or talking down to them. Our goal should be to engage and persuade them, to find the common ground, to build a big tent that ensures that we are showing up and honoring the humanity of every person in this country, whether they agree with us or not, and across all the different identities and the full diversity of this country, and then fighting for things that make a difference for everyone.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.